Hi, everybody. Welcome back to True Crime with Tiff Klein, giving criminals the disrespect they deserve. This is Season 2, Episode 15. That's right. I am doing 2 this week and maybe 3. I'd be remiss if I did not make an episode on the third part of the Justice for LaLa, Lania Clark case out of Wilkes Barre, Pennsylvania, where I am from. We had some breaking news yesterday, April 21st. Her aunt was finally charged with murder. Now, if you've been following this case, this was a tragic death of the 14-year-old LaLa Clark. It shook our entire community. It ignited some protests and raised urgent questions about child protection, police response, and family dynamics. And LaLa, a deaf teenager, described as a bold, sassy, funny, opinionated, full of life, vanished on January 19th, 2000. And she was found deceased just over a month later. Her case has since led to major criminal charges, public outcry, and a renewed push for justice. So a little bit of a background. Again, this is in Luzerne County, Pennsylvania, Wilkes Barre, PA. 4 days before LaLa disappeared, her adoptive mother, Ammerah Woods, secured a protection from abuse order against LaLa's biological aunt, prohibiting any contact between Etzel and the teen. Ammerah reported that Etzel had encouraged LaLa to run away previously and posed a danger to her well-being. LaLa, who was deaf and described as emotionally vulnerable, was upset by the outcome of the PFA. On January 17th, LaLa left her South Wilkes-Barre home and did not return. She was reported missing the same day. Police initially listed her as missing but not endangered, a decision that later fueled public criticism. On January 20th, police received a tip that LaLa and her aunt were at the extended stay hotel on Route 315. Officers searched the room but found nothing, only later learning that LaLa had been hiding inside the room, actively concealing herself while her aunt enabled her. This moment would become one of the most heavily scrutinized failures in the investigation. On February 21st, 2027, a man subleasing space at a garage on Thayer Street discovered human remains behind a gold Chevrolet Cobalt. The body was unclothed, face down in the snow, with visible bruising, cuts, and a rope-like item around her wrist. The garage was leased by LaLa's adoptive father. Police seized scissors, a knife, and hair samples from the scene. They executed 17 search warrants across 3 states, reviewing thousands of hours of surveillance, and submitted DNA to multiple labs. On February 27th, authorities confirmed the remains were LaLa's and took Etzel into custody in Maryland on charges including corruption of minors and interference with custody. There was an affidavit that was revealed yesterday. I will read it because I know a lot of people either don't have the time, they can't see their screens very well, and I'm going to read the entire affidavit for you. But it did reveal that LaLa had been alive for over 3 weeks after she disappeared. 3 weeks. In the affidavit, it will describe how Etzel restrained LaLa, kept her locked in a closet, deprived her of food, mocked her, and ultimately suffocated her with a plastic bag. Etzel then allegedly placed LaLa's body on a plastic tote and used a laundry cart to dispose of LaLa. There are surveillance videos that support this timeline. The community has been engulfed in grief and anger since this happened. Protests had formed outside the police headquarters, demanding transparency and accountability. Hundreds gathered for LaLa's vigil and memorial, celebrating LaLa's life, her laughter, her bold spirit, her love for animals, and the color pink. On April 21st, 2026, authorities announced homicide, kidnapping, and abuse of a corpse charges against her aunt, Bobby Jo Etzel. Officials emphasized the complexity of the case and pushed back against claims that they had not acted urgently. Etzel was arraigned wearing ballistic protection and is being held without bail. Now, I saw those videos yesterday. that some of our local news reports had released. And LaLa's family friend Candice posted it. They were there. Ammirah's family was there. And yeah, Bobby Joe was escorted out into a Wilkes Barre police vehicle wearing a bulletproof vest. Investigators have not announced charges against other individuals mentioned in the affidavits, including Bobby Joe's mother, Darlene. The community continues to push for justice for LaLa, and the investigation is still ongoing and extensive. So I just want to remind everybody that when we talk about true crime and we talk about crime cases, remember that they are real people. These are not TV. This is not a story. This is not a case of entertainment. This is somebody's real life that was taken. This is families who grieve, friends who grieve. Okay. LaLa was vibrant, smart, young, sassy, opinionated, funny, loving. LaLa loved her family, every side of her family, adoptive, blood, family, friends. She loved, and she was loved. She was secure. She was safe. She was loved. It's also a story about systematic failure, family betrayal, and a community refusing to let her memory fade. As the case moves towards a trial, one thing is clear. Wilkes Barre, or Wilkes Barre, will not stop demanding answers. Now, I've had the opportunity to discuss LaLa's case with Candice, LaLa's adoptive mother's best friend. Candice grew up with Bobby Joe, is best friends with LaLa's adoptive mom, Ammerah. Goes live quite often, has been basically the spokesperson for the family, and she too is feeling it. She is having panic attacks. She is trying to stay strong. She is fighting for justice for LaLa, and I have the utmost respect for that woman and that family. She had helped with the vigil. She showed up to every tribute, memorials, funerals. She's been going live, answering questions for the community. And again, you guys, you have to remember, the police are not going to release everything at once. This is how investigations get messed up. If they announce a suspect, then they're a flea risk, right? If they announce a suspect, then somebody could change their appearance and change their story 100 times before they even get to them. There's certain things and certain reasons why things are held back. And we all know that the media loves to spin their own narrative for engagement, for reviews, for ratings, and they lose touch with reality a lot of the time. And it's real life. And from what I've witnessed since the day LaLa went missing, I was one of the first to start posting about it. And I talked to Ammerah that night when she was missing, and I sent her information for Missing in America and had her fill out a report so my friend Jaz could shoot it off across the country, made a professional flyer, and Jaz also followed this case, and I appreciate her help on this. I'd started to talk to Candice about the case, and there was things I couldn't say because it wasn't my story to tell. It wasn't my investigation to tell. I knew some, but I didn't know all. I'm finding out some of this information just like you guys. Her family was not allowed to say certain things, but they were trying to debunk a lot of the rumors that LaLa ran away. She did not. LaLa went to see her aunt back in the fall, and that's why there was a threat that she was in danger because the aunt was coaxing her to leave, and LaLa loved everybody, and it really hurt her that she couldn't be around her aunt. So kids, like Candice said on her live yesterday, kids don't always understand the full extent that adults do. And they finally got her back. But when that PFA went into effect, that really hurt LaLa. And I'm not speaking for LaLa. I'm just going off what I heard Candice say. And she disappeared. And they knew the whole time. They knew who it was. And I knew. I told Candice before anything was released that I thought it was her aunt. And the so-called sex offender that was apparently involved, he was cleared. He didn't have anything to do with it. Bobby Joe has changed her story so many times now. Either that first she started saying that LaLa took her own life, that her friend took her life, that the sex offender took her life, then she ran away, this, that, and the other. She's changed her story 100 times. The police know what's up. They know what's up. Now, she's not been charged in anything else as of today, but it doesn't mean there's not any more charges coming. They have evidence that Candice said it's legit. It's not circumstantial. It's evidence. Now, if you remember, LaLa was found on the property of her dad's garage, which if you're from this area, it's over by Mart's Group by Old River Road in Wilkes Barre. And obviously she was going to try to frame her adoptive father to make it look like he did something. And I have to give mad props out to Candice for being on her live yesterday. And she even said, you know, she's been going through it and sometimes you just have to laugh. Now, this bitch puts her niece in a tote, puts her in a shopping cart. And if you know Old River Road and you know that area, like Candice's husband said, there are more potholes on the sidewalk than there are in the street. We're full of potholes around here, guys. And Candice said, they had to have heard her coming. She had to have been setting off these cameras. So there was about like 20 cameras on that area that they actually got the surveillance from. And they have it on footage of her pushing LaLa to the place where she was found. It's disgusting. It's maddening. All that little girl wanted to do was be loved and love her family. And a family member took her life out of jealousy. And again, I'm not speaking for Bobby Joe. I'm not speaking for LaLa. I'm telling you what Candice said. Bobby Joe is jealous of Ammerah and Antoine's relationship with LaLa and just jealous in general. And LaLa loved everybody. It didn't matter what part of the family, she loved them. And it hurt her that her aunt wasn't allowed to have contact with her. As a 14-year-old, you don't understand the severity of things and a PFA. But let me bring it back to that first episode I did on LaLa and how I have a PFA on my ex here in Luzerne County and how the police ignore it. It is a piece of paper and then it gets ignored. Violations get ignored until it's too late. And I even had screamed at a chief of police in a local police department that this is what happens. And this was before they found LaLa. I'm like, this is what happens when PFAs are ignored. People end up dead. Well, mine was violated and nobody gave a shit. Talking to 4 different police departments, being ignored by the district attorneys, the judge assistants, nobody got back to me. And then you see this, you hear this. A PFA was put in place in Luzerne County from an aunt not being allowed to have contact with her niece, and her niece ends up dead because PFAs are not taken seriously. PFAs are a piece of paper in the court of the law. And people can violate them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times until it's too late. Until no more violations can be made. And then they have to have a funeral service for a little girl that's 14 years old because they couldn't do their job. Getting a little heated. I apologize. They did do their job, but I shouldn't have said that. Bobby Joe violated the PFA. My point is PFAs are supposed to be a protection from abuse. Did this PFA protect LaLa from abuse? Absolutely not. And I am refraining from saying the things I want to say in my podcast because I know a lot of people are listening. And it's my duty as a domestic violence survivor and someone who has a PFA from the same area as LaLa, I'd be remiss if I did not bring up the importance of talking about it. The importance of if you see something, say something. Do not look the other way. Do not say, well, I don't want to get involved, because that is why people end up dead. If one person got involved and one person made a 911 call and one person stuck their neck out, it could save a life. And that's what I ask from you. I ask from you, my listeners, my followers, if you see something, say something. If your friend gets mad because you witnessed something, and you're in your deepest heart, your intention is to help them, they'll get over it eventually. One thing as a domestic violence survivor, and LaLa was a domestic violence victim, just because it wasn't a boyfriend, it was within her immediate family. It's domestic violence. And I think that's something that we don't talk about enough. There's child abuse, yes. It's also domestic violence. It's not just adults that date each other, guys. Grandparents can abuse grandkids. Siblings can abuse each other. It's all domestic violence. And she was abused and domestically abused by her aunt. Someone that was blood related, someone that claimed loved her and cared about her and took her life out of jealousy. According to Candice, Bobby Joe did this because she was afraid she was going to get in trouble for violating the PFA. Now, I'm going to take a second and let you think about that. Just going to take a second here. She got nervous that she was going to get in trouble for violating a PFA, knowing that she'd end up going to jail or a fine or whatever it was that the judge decided to do with that violation, if anything. I'm going to say it one more time. She claims she took LaLa's life because she was afraid that she was going to get in trouble for violating the PFA. So let's weigh the pros and cons here. Well, there's no pros. Let's weigh the cons on each side, shall we? You turn yourself in. You let LaLa go. She lives. You go to jail for a year, pay a fine, whatever it is that they deem that you need as a consequence. You take your niece's life, store her in a plastic tote that you would put clothes in, put her in a shopping cart after you put a plastic bag over her head, denied her of food, and locked her in a closet for weeks, and then discarded her body like trash on her dad's property of his business in the freezing cold with no clothes on. Now locked up with charges of murder, facing life in prison or the death penalty, perhaps. I don't know about you, but I think most normal people would say, well, geez, this is a life that I love. This is a child. She doesn't deserve this. I messed up. Let me take some adult responsibility here. Have my niece return to her family, or at least reach out to her family to come get her. Violate the PFA, get the consequence, or murder her. I know you guys can't see me, but I'm moving my hands like a weighted scale. So she thought the best thing to do was to kill her niece and discard her body in the freezing cold in Wilkes Barre. That's why she thought that was the better choice. And she's disgusting. And I can only hope that the trial, I mean, she might take a plea deal. I don't know. But if it goes to trial, this is not going to be a happy town. I'm just going to say that. So I am just shocked. I mean, we all knew, most of us knew what was happening. But as of right now, she's the only one in custody, the only one being investigated. Because the ones that were investigated were cleared. And she tried pinning it on everybody, even her own mother, Bobby Joe's mother, the aunt's mother. LaLa's biological grandma was covering up for Bobby Joe. Okay, I'm going to read the affidavit, and it's going to be long, but people had asked me to do it because they can't see the words on their screen, on their phone, or they want to listen to it when they drive. I don't mind doing it because this little girl deserves to have a voice, and I'm not speaking for her, but I'm at least going to read what this foul, disgusting woman did to LaLa. Now, if you caught the news yesterday, or you saw it in the paper, or you saw Candice's live video on the LaLa Clark Facebook page, she had tears. Like she's the victim. Poor me. Woe is me. Get out the violin. She's the victim? Excuse me? You're going to kill your 14-year-old niece, someone that she felt like she could trust with her life, and you took her life, and you want to have tears coming out to get in a police car? You want to have tears? All right. Well, let me read this affidavit because it is long, but I can read pretty quickly. I'm going to take a sip here because my mouth will get dry. This came from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania of Luzerne County. Defendant Bobby Joe Etzel, 1067 Highway 315, Extended Stay Room 113, Plains Township, Pennsylvania. Box checked, felony fool. Docket number CR124-2026. Request of lab services, yes. Gender, female, non-Hispanic. They did not take DNA. At that time, they did not do a defendant fingerprint. They had her down at 5'4", 220 pounds. Detective Justin Edwards, Detective Michael Dennis, and Detective Alexandra Nolan's names are on this. Detective James Conney, Detective Kevin Andress of the Wilkes Barre Police Department, accusing the above-named defendant who lives at the address set forth above, 14 New Alexander Street, first floor apartment, Wilkes Barre, PA, on January 17th, 26th to February 15th, 2026, on or about this happened, okay? I know this is going to be a lot, so just bear with me here. A person is guilty of criminal homicide if he intentionally, knowingly, recklessly, or negligently causes the death of another human being. The defendant, Bobby Joe Etzel, intentionally, knowingly, recklessly, and negligently caused the death of LaLa Clark, a 15-year-old female. Of the accused associated with this offense, kidnapping. A person is guilty of kidnapping if he unlawfully removes another substantial distance under the circumstances from the place where he is found. The defendant, Bobby Joe Etzel, did unlawfully confine LaLa Clark for a substantiated period in a place of isolation to interfere with public officials' ability to locate LaLa Clark, who was a missing person. Abuse of corpse. Except as authorized by law, a person who treats a corpse in a way that he knows would outrage ordinary family sensibilities commits a misdemeanor of the second degree. The defendant, Bobby Joe Etzel, treated the body of LaLa Clark in a way that she knows would outrage the family by shipping her body and dumping it behind a garage at 55 Fair Street, Wilkes Barre City. It was signed off by the detectives that the warrant of arrest or a summons be issued and the defendant be required to answer charges. They verified that the facts set forth in this complaint are true and correct to the best of their knowledge. This complaint consists of the preceding pages 1 through 3, and they certified that this filing complies with the provisions of the case records public access policy of the United Judicial System of Pennsylvania. Now, on to page 4. Now, I do want to let you know that this affidavit is available for reference on LaLa Clark Facebook page. They posted it. So it's public knowledge. So what I'm reading is not some secret. This is open to the public. Anybody can read it, and I'm going to get into it. January 13th, 2026, the victim, Nia Clark, testified in a protection from abuse hearing, of which defendant Bobby Joe Etzel was the subject. Despite defendant being Clark's biological aunt, the hearing resulted in defendant being restrained from having any contact with the victim. The order was filed to docket number 2025-11372 in the Court of Common Pleas. During the proceedings, Clark was said to have complained about her treatment by her adoptive mother, Ammerah Woods. Based on interviews, Clark was disciplined by Woods later the same day, which discipline resulted in Clark's cell phone and other devices being taken from her. Clark was extremely upset with Woods for both losing her devices and not being able to see defendant and defendant's 4 children, who are Clark's cousins. 2 days later, January 15th and 16th, Woods and Clark's adoptive father, Antoine Clark, took Clark to visit the Western Pennsylvania School for the Deaf in hopes that LaLa would enroll. They returned to Wilkes Barre from Western Pennsylvania on January 16th. The next morning, January 17th, 2026, fellow residents of the Clark's Terrace Street home reported seeing Clark with her hair done, acting normally and without any issues or indication that Clark was in some type of distress. Around 5 o'clock p.m. on January 17th, Clark was called downstairs for dinner when it was discovered that she had left the home unannounced. She had last been seen at approximately 11 a.m. on January 17th. As a result, Antoine and Ammerah, her adoptive parents, called and reported LaLa Clark missing to the Wilkes Barre City Police Department at 6:53 p.m. on January 17th, 2026. Antoine Clark reported that LaLa walked out the front door, and he did not indicate a reason to believe that she was with her aunt. So that's January 17th is when she was last seen. He did not think that she was abducted or taken from the home against her will. Surveillance video obtained by investigators from the day of Clark's disappearance, so shows her likely route of travel to be east on Terrace Street and then north on West River Street. Although Clark was never observed on any camera, any other route from her Terrace Street home was ruled out due to available surveillance. On January 17th, 2020, same evening, Wilkes Barre police created a missing juvenile entry for LaLa Clark into the National Crime Information Center, otherwise known as the NCIC, along with her description, details about her disability, a description of her hearing aids, and details about her necklace. She did not have a cellular phone or other device that police could use to electronically locate her. Now, they interviewed her adoptive mother, Ammerah Woods. Woods related to police that Clark was not happy with the outcome of the PFA hearing, restraining defendant from contact with Clark. Woods did not believe Clark to be abducted or in danger, but rather that she was likely with her aunt, the defendant, who was the target of the aforementioned PFA order. Antoine Clark related that the only biological family in the area who was not homeless was Clark's paternal grandmother, Darlene Etzel, who lived in a nursing home. Neither Antoine or Ammerah, LaLa's adoptive parents, could name friends to whom Clark might run to. Also on the date, Antoine Clark went to the nursing home of LaLa's biological grandmother, Darlene Etzel. He would advise police later that no one at the home had seen LaLa Clark. On or about January 19th, citing LaLa Clark's, quote, history of runaway behavior, impulsivity, and conduct that places her at serious risk or harm to herself and others, unquote. Woods filed for court-supervised intervention and placement into a facility to ensure the child's safety and well-being. As stated in Woods' petition filed, the above-referenced docket, despite her efforts to supervise and protect Clark, Woods indicated her belief that defendant facilitated the Clark's departure, thus violating the PFA order. Further, Clark's behaviors escalated to a level that cannot be safely managed in the home without professional intervention. A search of police records on Clark's history revealed she was reported missing in the fall of 2025. After running away, she was found with the defendant, Bobby Joe Etzel, in Wilkes Barre Township. More pages of them being signed off on. Now we're on page 6. On January 19th, 2026, Ammerah Woods arrived at police headquarters, reported to report someone at the Wilkes Barre Inn and Suites on Kidder Street, believed he or she saw Clark on the property. Officer Dana Cope proceeded to the Wilkes Barre Inn Suites to investigate. The defendant was not a guest at the hotel. Clark was not seen on the property, and the lead could not be advanced further as a result. The investigation later revealed that the information was inaccurate, and Clark was never at the Wilkes Barre Inn and Suites during the time she was listed as a missing person. On January 20th, 2026, the Plains Township Police responded to a 911 call from Woods at the Extended Stay Hotel at 1067 Route 315. Woods told the responding officer that she was told that defendant took Clark and she was in the defendant's hotel room. Woods said part of that belief was also from a posted TikTok video showing LaLa inside a hotel room, believed to be the extended stay in Plains Township. Plains Township officers confirmed with hotel staff that the defendant was in room 113, and officers attempted to contact the defendant for several minutes at room 113 before she ever even opened the door. The defendant claimed to be in the shower, which caused the delay in opening the door, and she initially was uncooperative. The defendant denied any of her 4 biological children had cell phones, which was later proven false, and said Clark was not inside. The defendant eventually gave Plains Township Police consent to look around the room. They did, but they did not locate LaLa Clark. It was determined through the investigation that at this point, LaLa Clark was inside the room, actively hiding from Plains police officers on January 20th, and was actively being concealed by the defendant, Bobby Joe Etzel. Clark, nor any of the defendant's children, alerted the police to Clark's presence. The hotel staff were provided with a picture of LaLa and asked to contact police if they saw her on the property. Police did not receive any reports from the hotel staff reporting seeing LaLa Clark on the property. At this point, Wilkes Barre police were not notified that any member of law had contact with the defendant. There was a request for assistance from the public. On Friday, January 23rd, after speaking with Woods, Ammerah, who is LaLa's adoptive mom, police created a circulated social media post regarding Clark's disappearance and seeking any information from the public. Woods indicated her belief that Clark was with defendant, but also that defendant, Bobby Joe Etzel, was posting that she did not know where LaLa Clark was. At that time, Ammerah Woods believed the posts, that they were an attempt to misdirect those trying to find Clark. So let me rephrase that, because this page split up and I didn't want to make it sound like she believed what Bobby said. Woods, Ammerah, who is LaLa's adoptive mom, said she believed the posts were an attempt to misdirect those trying to find Clark. Detectives has notified patrol of the situation involving Clark and her missing person status, as well as her connection to the defendant. The Facebook post generated no tips regarding any probable cause on a location for Clark. During the first week LaLa was missing, Woods reiterated to police her belief that Clark absconded from the house and was being concealed by defendant. Statewide notice to all police agencies. On January 28th, with LaLa Clark still not found locally and a recent tip about Clark possibly being in the Lehigh County, which, if you guys don't know where that is, it's in the Allentown, Reading area, with an associate of the defendant. Wilkes Barre police circulated her information on the statewide Pennsylvania Criminal Intelligence Center, which is also known as the PACIC, to alert all Pennsylvania police departments to be on the lookout. So that was January 28th, 2026, when the Wilkes Barre police circulated her information on the statewide PA Criminal Intelligence Center, to all Pennsylvania police departments to be on the lookout for her. At this point, she was last seen 10 days prior. Contact with the defendant. On January 29th, 2026, Detective Dennis was finally able to make telephone contact with the defendant, Bobby Jo Etzel. She stated she did not have Clark or know her whereabouts. In addition, due to the PFA being in place, the defendant indicated she had not attempted to contact or locate Clark. She agreed to come to headquarters to discuss the case and her allegations that Clark was being abused at home. Surveillance and search of Boulevard townhomes. On January 30th, 2026, Wilkes Barre police received reported sightings along with an email from Ammerah Woods stating she was informed that LaLa Clark was staying at the Boulevard townhomes in an apartment just off Wilkes Barre Boulevard. Detective Dennis viewed hours of security footage that showed the entrances of those apartments. One person with physical attributes similar to Clark was seen walking into one of those apartments, but investigative steps, including sending the photo to Ammerah Woods, revealed the person was not LaLa Clark. Thereafter, on February 1st, 2026, Detective Fisher contacted the female resident of that apartment who denied knowing or seeing Clark or anyone connected to the missing teen. Search for defendant after failing to appear for her interview. On February 3rd, 2026, Detectives Duddick and Dennis went to the Extended Stay Hotel, 1067 Route 315 in Plains Township, and contacted defendant at room 113 because she did not appear at headquarters to meet with police. Let me say that again. February 3rd, 2026, Detectives Duddick and Dennis went to Extended Stay Hotel on 315 in Plains Township and contacted the defendant at room 113 because she did not appear at headquarters to meet with police. Defendant stated she missed her interview appointment with police because she was ill and she was up sick all night. Since appeared agitated with the detectives for showing up at her hotel. She appeared agitated that the police and detectives showed up at her hotel looking for her missing niece, to whom she's not supposed to have contact with and has been missing at this point since January 19th, and we're now on February 3rd. She's agitated, guys. She's agitated with the detectives for showing up at her hotel. Like, what an inconvenience for her. What an inconvenience. Detective Dennis explained they repeatedly tried to contact her, but she did not answer or return their calls. Defendant told investigators she suspected Clark's biological grandmother, Sabrina Smith, may be hiding Clark. Now, I'm going to interject here. One, I need to take a breather. And two, if you guys watched the protests at the Wilkes Barre City Township Police Department a few months ago, Sabrina was outside pleading, crying. She's on film. You can find it. So I just wanted to put that into perspective. That's her biological grandmother, okay? So Bobby Jo Etzel was accusing the other grandmother for hiding Clark. Now she's accusing another grandmother. Detectives asked for consent to look inside defendant's hotel room, but she refused, stating her children were still sleeping and she was sick all night. She added how she already allowed police and children and youth inside to check her hotel room. As such, another search was unnecessary and she would not consent. It was determined the defendant never allowed representatives of children and youth inside the room, as she claimed. At that time, without probable cause and a search warrant to force their way into the hotel room, investigators followed up with hotel staff if they had seen Clark anywhere on the property recently, seeking sufficient probable cause to obtain a warrant to search for LaLa. All staff members present looked at the photos of Clark and said they have not seen her recently on the property, more specifically, near defendant's room. Detectives made repeated attempts to locate a witness or other means of developing probable cause to search the hotel room or any other location where evidence linked Clark might be found. Investigation on Caffrey Street. We're now on February 6th, 7 o'clock a.m. Detective Dennis, with the assistance of Patrol Division, responded to 63 Caffrey Street to check that residence for Clark. Now again, LaLa went missing on January 17th. We are now on February 6th, guys. Investigators received tips that Clark was recently seen at this location with a purported boyfriend. The property was posted by the city and should be vacant. Upon arrival, officers observed no footprints in the snow leading to the back entrance to the residence. Officers knocked on the door, and the property owner, who lives next door, exited her home and explained no one had been inside. She also had a Ring doorbell that would activate if anyone approached the front door, and she never observed anyone coming or going from the residence. Officers were allowed in 63 Caffrey Street and searched the property for anyone inside, but no persons were located. WBPD press release, Wilkes Barre Police Department press release. On February 2026, in hopes of obtaining additional leads on LaLa Clark and increasing awareness of the case, the Wilkes Barre City Police Department issued a press release requesting the public's assistance, which included photos of LaLa Clark. The photos and related information were posted on their respective media websites. Interview with LaLa Clark's grandmother / defendant's mother. This is Bobby Joe Etzel's mother, Darlene. On February 11th, 2026, at or about 3:00 p.m., Detective Fisher and Detective Comney went to the nursing home of Darlene Etzel in Kingston, Pennsylvania, and spoke with her as the paternal grandmother of Clark, as well as the mother of the defendant. Although Darlene Etzel is deaf, she is able to read lips and seem to communicate well with detectives. Detective Etzel said she has not seen or heard from Clark since she has been reported missing on January 17th, 2026. Specifically, she said she last spoke with LaLa on January 13th, following the PFA hearing, when she indicated that LaLa Clark spoke of running away from her adoptive parents. Darlene Etzel said she pleaded with Clark not to run away. Darlene added that LaLa never said anything to her about being suicidal or harming herself. Darlene Etzel added that she spoke to Bobby Joe, her daughter, who denied seeing or being with Clark. Darlene Etzel further suggested that LaLa Clark may be with one of her boyfriends. So first she was accused of running away. Then she's being accused of her other grandmother, Sabrina, hiding her. Now she's being accused of running away with her boyfriends. Just wanted to catch you up there. This investigation later revealed that Darlene's statements were false and intended to mislead police. Through video witness statements and digital evidence, most of Darlene's initial account was debunked. Search at Shields Market, where I do a lot of my shopping. On February 11th, 2026, acting on a tip regarding a sighting of LaLa Clark, Detective Dennis responded to Shields on George Avenue and reviewed security footage from Monday, February 9th. At approximately 10:45 a.m. on February 11th, Detective Dennis observed a juvenile accompanied by an adult female and tall, thin black male. Although the juvenile did resemble LaLa Clark, utilizing photographs, investigators determined that the juvenile was not LaLa Clark. In addition, Detective Conmey showed the picture to Antoine Clark, LaLa's adoptive father, who confirmed the juvenile female in the grocery store was not LaLa Clark. Investigation of tip from defendant's ex-boyfriend. Then, on February 11th, 2026, Detective Dennis spoke to Jason Marple regarding information he provided to the staff at the Scranton School for the Deaf. Marple was an off-and-on relationship with the defendant, Bobby Joe, for almost a decade. Marple said he suspected Clark was either with the defendant or she was hiding Clark from the police. He also said the defendant could be inside the defendant's friend Jessica Stone's residence based on social media activity he observed. Marple did not know Stone's address, but Stone was last known to live at 705 East Northampton Street in Wilkes Barre, which is where Clark was located when LaLa ran away from home in October in 2025. When LaLa Clark was located in the fall of 2025 in the township, the defendant also was inside the residence. On February 12th, 2026, Detectives Conmey and Fisher conducted hours of surveillance at 703, 705 East Northampton Street, but no one affiliated with LaLa or the defendant were observed. Investigation with Clark's biological mother. Also, on February 2026, investigators obtained a possible phone number being utilized by Clark that was registered to Clark's biological mother. I do not know how to pronounce her name, so I do not want to say it. out of respect. But her last name was McCloey or McClose. Either way, investigators obtained a possible phone number being utilized by Clark that was registered to Clark's biological mother's boyfriend. Investigators, upon speaking with her boyfriend, said that she had received a health application notification for Clark and the device was not in Clark's possession, and messages from McCloe generated a false lead. Follow-up surveillance on extended stay. On February 14th and February 16th, surveillance was again conducted at the 3705 East Northampton Street location, as well as the extended stay hotel, but no activity related to people of interest in the investigation was observed. Now, I had talked to, this is when I remember it being, it was breaking news that there was some activity, but nobody quite knew what happened. But I remember it coming out in the news. On February 16th, 2026, Detective Comney interviewed the live-in girlfriend of Antoine Clark. Now, this is the live-in girlfriend of LaLa's adoptive father. They also interviewed, I lost my train of thought there. February 6th, 2026, Detective Comney interviewed the live-in girlfriend of Antoine Clark along with children, 10-year-old AP and 11-year-old NP. The interview was conducted hoping Clark confided in one of the children about her planned destination or possibly used one of their devices to send out communication. One of the children confirmed that LaLa used his or her cell phone during a previous discipline, but it was weeks prior. The two children also were at another location the day that Clark went missing and did not interact with her in the days leading up to her going missing. The girlfriend was likely the last adult to see LaLa before she left the residence on January 17th. She checked her phone and was positive that Clark helped her bring in groceries from her car at 10:30 a.m. She specifically remembered Clark looking very nice, not upset, not disheveled, or out of sorts. The last time she saw LaLa was on a normal morning. Clark was watching television in the living room, and she believed that LaLa left the home by walking out the door. Antoine Clark indicated that LaLa's Chromebook from school revealed she was online at 11:17 a.m. So she would have left the house somewhere between 11:17 and when she was called for dinner. Antoine Clark's girlfriend said LaLa asked for steak and seemed happy that she bought steaks at the store and she was making them for dinner. All right, guys, that is the first part. I'm going to shovel myself around here because we're getting ready to get into the discovery of LaLa's body. Trigger warning, there is some descriptive parts, so if you don't want to hear this, I suggest you turning this podcast off or reading it or listening to it at another time. Again, all this information is public on LaLa's Facebook page that Candice made, and it's out there for the public. I am not reading things that shouldn't be read. I am not putting this information out there in disrespect. LaLa's family has posted this affidavit themselves for the community to read. And I'm just trying to do a courtesy for those who have a hard time reading on their phones or maybe a hard time seeing and they want to listen to it. So unfortunately, I can't accommodate to those who are hard of hearing on a podcast unless I did a video. But even then, maybe somebody who knows sign language can take this and interpret it for somebody. On February 21st, 2026, Wilkes Barre police received a report of a body found behind a garage on Thayer Street in the city of Wilkes Barre. Wilkes Barre detectives, Luzerne County detectives, and prosecutors, state police forensics, and the Luzerne County coroner's office responded to the scene. This was February 20th. She was missing a month and a few days. The body was lying on a pile of snow. The face and areas of the back and arms were discolored, with areas appearing to have cuts. A black and white braided rope-like item was observed around a wrist, and a pair of scissors was viewed near the body. The body, although female, did not have any hearing aids or the necklace that LaLa was reported to constantly be wearing. It was not immediately apparent from comparison to the photographs that body was that of Clark. The investigation later would reveal that portions of the garage behind which the body was found had recently been leased by Antoine Clark, the adoptive father of Linnea Clark, leading the initial suspicion of his involvement or that the placement was being used to set up Antoine for the crime. That was my initial first thought. When I saw this go down and they found her there, I said they're framing her dad. The investigation quickly indicated, as below set forth, this location was merely an extraordinary coincidence. Investigators obtained a search warrant for the scene at Thayer Street, where in addition to the body, they collected purple-handed scissors, white plastic material consistent with a kitchen garbage bag near the body's head, a red ribbon, like drawstring, seemingly from a garbage bag, and MAC folding knife under the body. Strands of her hair observed on the knife. The body was photographed prior to removal by Luzerne County Coroner Dion Fernandez, who would assist police in confirming the identity of the body and schedule an autopsy. The autopsy later determined that suspected trauma on scene was attributed to post-mortem decomposition. Utilizing additional evidence, including dental records, the body was positively identified as La'Nia Clark. On April 20th, 2026, Dr. Charles Siebert ruled the cause of Clark's death as mechanical asphyxiation and her manner of death as a homicide. Now, mechanical asphyxiation, it could be a bar hold, it could be suffocation, done by the hands of someone else or an object. It's hard to read. After Clark's body was discovered on February 21st, Detective Joseph Sinovich immediately set out to obtain any surveillance footage from the 55 Thayer Street scene. Detective Sinovich uncovers video from approximately 11:45 p.m. on February 14th into the early morning hours of February 15th. The footage captures a female with a larger build and a unique gait pushing a wheeled cart, seemingly to contain a heavy object. This was Valentine's Day, guys. Valentine's Day night. This is what's happening to LaLa's body. Think about where you were on Valentine's Day in Wilkes Barre. This individual in the video appears to be wearing a mask synonymous with the COVID-19 pandemic. A large, dark hooded jacket, lighter colored pants, dark colored shoes and or boots, and work-style gloves. While on Thayer Street, the cart tips over and the large, heavy object falls to the ground. The individual pushing the wheeled cart is visibly upset when the object falls out of the cart onto the ground, and the suspect is unable to get the heavy object, which was confirmed through investigation to be a plastic storage tote, back into the cart. The suspect leaves the tote in the road and briefly walks both west and east, appearing to check the surrounding areas. The suspect then drags the storage tote that fell from the cart along the ground from the middle of Thayer Street into the main driveway of 55 Thayer Street property and eventually to the rear parking area to exactly where the body was located on February 21st, 2026. I'm going to repeat that. While on Thayer Street, the cart tips over and the large, heavy object falls to the ground. The individual pushing the wheeled cart is visibly upset when the object falls out of the cart onto the ground, and the suspect is unable to get the heavy object, which was confirmed through investigation to be a plastic storage tote, back into the cart. The suspect leaves the tote in the road and briefly walks both west and east, appearing to check the surrounding areas. The suspect then drags the storage tote that fell from the cart along the ground from the middle of Thayer Street into the main driveway of 55 Thayer Street property and eventually to the rear parking area to exactly where the body was located on February 21st, 2026. Eventually, the suspect wheels the cart to the northern end of 55 Thayer Street and leaves it next to a dumpster while she continues to work on disposing of Clark's body. The individual then dumps the body out of the tote while the body is wrapped inside a sheet or other type of covering. She then opens a bag to remove items for use on the body and then places certain items back inside the bag after they are removed from the body. The individual then puts the bag back inside the tote in preparation to leave 55 Thayer Street. The bag and now empty tote are eventually placed back inside the wheeled cart, and the person pushes the cart east on Thayer Street towards its intersection with Caitlin Avenue. Investigators uncovered that defendant, who fits the description of this individual, previously lived nearby 21 Caitlin Avenue for several years and would have knowledge of the neighborhood and the wooded area surrounding the garage at 55 Thayer Street. That is page 12, I believe. Now we're going to move on to the search of the laundromat. That was a hard read. I have to stop for a second and I haven't read this far yet. So when I'm reading this affidavit live to you guys, I'm reading it with you. I read up to like page 8 and I had to stop because I got busy at work. But the remainder of this, I haven't read yet, so I'm on this devastating ride with you. And again, I don't know what's about to be said, but I do want to just cut in and say I'm just very sorry this happened to LaLa, and I'm sorry this happened to her family. Nobody deserves this, especially a 14-year-old that is full of love. Discarded her like trash in the snow. Based on investigators' initial review of surveillance at 55 Thayer Street, it was believed a laundry cart could have been used to transport the body. On February 22nd, 2026, investigators began going to Wilkes Barre laundromats to possibly advance the laundry cart theory. At the spots Be Gone at 357 South Main Street, police uncovered a large gray in color plastic storage tote. My God. The markings appear to match the markings of the tote on the video, which, in the investigators' experience, are consistent with having stored and moved an overly heavy object in it. Now, those totes, guys, you can get them from Walmart and they have the lids that snap on. And, sometimes they're 10-gallon, 5-gallon, 20-gallon, 3 quarts. When you put too much in them, the plastic on the sides bulges out a little bit and the lid doesn't fit the way it should. And even the color changes, especially on gray ones. When the plastic is stretched out more than it should be, you get like white streaks on the plastic. I don't know, but I have a few of those totes, and how did she fit her in there? I don't know. But inside the tote, a garbage bag which had been cut open by a sharp object and not ripped or torn was located. Both the tote and garbage bag were collected as evidence. Investigators compared the laundry carts on scene to the video surveillance of the wheeled cart. But I'm going to go back for a second. The page before this said that the defendant lived near that area for many years. She didn't know there was cameras around? I mean, did she not realize that people's ring cameras, people's outdoor cameras hooked to businesses, not totem poles, but telephone poles? She didn't think that somebody might have a camera? But she knew this area very well. Investigators compared the laundry carts on scene to the video surveillance of the wheeled cart. The laundry cart at spot Be Gone matched the suspect's wheeled cart observed on numerous surveillance videos. The carts not only matched the cart on the video, but they are able to contain and transport the above-described tote that contained the body. Investigators confirmed it was the suspect who left the tote in the cart at the South Main Street location through additional surveillance footage. The suspect arrives near Spots Be Gone laundromat. The suspect is pushing the cart with the tote inside in all above described videos. At the laundromat, surveillance cameras capture the suspect throwing a bag in a dumpster at the rear of the property. The suspect then continues north on South Main Street, now without the wheeled cart or storage tote. Investigators began an extensive search for video footage in the area. As the individual is identified by multiple different surveillance cameras, investigators expand the search across the city. Investigators identify cameras and follow the now suspect from Thayer Street along from the following route she arrived from by uncovering a different camera upon which she appears. South on Charles Street, through the intersection of New Elizabeth Street, south again on Charles Street, and then west on Conwell Street, traveling south on Old River Road, west on Caitlin Avenue, and then arriving on Thayer Street. No surveillance footage of any kind could be found showing the suspect traveling in any direction on New Alexander Street, Dolphin Lane, and Cardiff Lane, or Charles Street, prior to being observed traveling through the intersection of Charles and New Elizabeth Streets. This video later confirmed that the defendant started from 114 New Alexander Street and traveled the above-described route to 55 Thayer Street. After leaving 55 Thayer Street, the suspect is tracked first through South Wilkes Barre and then through downtown Wilkes Barre as follows. Intersection with Caitlin Ave, south on Old River Road, east on Corlier Street, north on Cary Ave, east on Wood Street, north on South Franklin Street, east on Garfield Street, north on Sanborn Street, east on Sullivan Street, and then north on South Main Street. Leaves the laundromat north on South Main Street to Ross Street. West on Roth Street to Barnum Place, cuts through a parking lot off Barnum Place, and reemerges on South Main between 245 and 259 South Main Street. North on South Main Street to East South Street. East on East South Street to Nesbitt Lane. North on Nesbitt Lane to St. Mary's Lane. East on St. Mary's Lane to South Washington Street. North on South Washington Street to Intermodal 47 South Washington Street. Suspect lost on video and relocated on North Main Street going from Public Square to East Bennett Street. East on East Bennett Street to North Washington Ave, north on North Washington Street to area of 152 North Washington Street, where a change of clothes occurred, to the intersection of North Washington and East Jackson Streets. Prior to arriving in the area of this final intersection, the suspect is observed carrying a larger black garbage bag. Through investigation, more information was obtained that helped Detective Sinovich locate additional relevant security cameras. The new footage showed the suspect had changed clothes, disposed of the larger black garbage bag, and was carrying a white kitchen-style garbage bag when she entered a rideshare in the area of 198 North Pennsylvania Avenue on February 15, 2:43 a.m. Upon entering the rideshare, the suspect's bare hand could be seen and appeared to be that of a dark-skinned individual. The clothing the female was wearing when she entered the rideshare was a white coat with black accents and Puma sneakers. Sorry, I'm stumbling on my words here. It's emotional and my mouth is very dry, so bear with me. Investigators made comparisons between the suspect in the above videos and defendant Bobby Joe Etzel, finding the suspect and defendant have the following similarities. The suspect appears to be female like the defendant. Both have the same body type. Both have dark skin. Both have the same unique gait based on video of known footage of defendant. Social media images of the defendant show her wearing a white jacket that matches the white jacket the suspect is wearing when entering the rideshare at 2:43 a.m. on February 5th, 2026. Defendant used to live at 21 Caitlin Ave and is clearly familiar with the neighborhood and location of the body. Well, clearly not, because there was cameras everywhere. In addition to the foregoing motive DNA evidence, statements of witnesses compared to corroborating evidence, the videos of defendant's treatment of Clark during her captivity and immediately preceding her death are submitted as part of the entirety of the probably cause set forth therein to substantial defendant as the murderer and suspect depicted in the videos disposing of the body of LaLa Clark. Contemporaneously having tracked the suspect from starting near 114 Alexander Street to dispose of LaLa's body, Wilkes Barre police received an anonymous tip from someone staying at the extended stay hotel where defendant was previously identified as staying at. The tipster indicated the defendant had been staying at 114 New Alexander Street around the date of February 14th. The previously described camera footage is consistent with the suspect leaving 114 New Alexander Street to begin the trek to the 55 Thayer Street garage when the body was dumped. Detective Sinovich contacted the owner-landlord of 114 New Alexander Street and learned that a woman matching the defendant's description had been staying with the male tenant, Julio Hernandez, who was cleared, by the way, who lives at 114 New Alexander Street in a first-floor apartment on the left side of the structure. The landlord also said that the woman matching defendant's description had relocated to Maryland over the weekend, immediately following the discovery of LaLa's body, but the male was staying in the first-floor apartment on the left side of 114 New Alexander Street. Let me repeat that. The woman matching defendant's description had relocated to Maryland over the weekend, immediately following the discovery of LaLa's body. But the male was still staying in the first floor apartment on the left side of 114 New Alexander Street. She fled. She fled to Maryland when they found LaLa, guys. Detectives applied for a warrant to search 114 New Alexander Street for evidence related to LaLa's death on February 24th, 2026. The department's emergency services unit made entry the same day and removed any people inside so the search could be conducted. In a dumpster adjacent to the property, the clothing believed to have been worn by the suspect when Clark's body was disposed of was located. Investigators also recovered a cellular phone during this search. I mean, how dumb. Not only do you dump her body on her father's business property, you do it in a place you knew, but obviously didn't know there was cameras, and then put your clothes and cell phone where LaLa's body was disposed. I'm processing this because I'm just trying to make sure I'm reading this correctly. I'm reading this correctly. Okay. Between the location of the body, laundromat on South Main Street, as well as searches of 114 New Alexander Street and the dumpster outside of 114 New Alexander Street, investigators recovered numerous items of evidence that were sent to the Pennsylvania State Police Crime Lab for DNA analysis. On March 19th, 2026, Wilkes Barre police received a lab report regarding those items submitted for testing. This is a lot, guys. We're on to March now. Now remember, LaLa went missing January 17th. We're now at March 19th. Some significant findings include the rape kit and fingernail scrapings collected from LaLa were negative, which is relevant to negate an assertion the defendant staged the body to make it look like a sex crime. Defendant, Bobby Joe Etzel, DNA profile was found on the pants and coat worn by the suspect seen on video, who disposed of LaLa's body behind 55 Thayer Street. Based on the Pennsylvania State Police report, investigators requested additional analysis, which showed additional meaningful DNA between defendant and Clark to items in the case, including defendant's suspected DNA profile on the knife found at 55 Thayer Street garage seen with the body, on the lip and handle of the tote found at the South Main Street laundromat, on a tan jacket worn by the person who dumped the body, and inside the closet where Clark was alleged to be restrained and hidden. Clark's suspected DNA profile was located inside the closet and on the tan jacket worn by the suspect transporting the body in the videos. The search at 114 New Alexander Street also led investigators to a witness, identified here as Commonwealth Witness Number 1. CW1 was said to be a friend of defendant and was told by the defendant how she murdered Clark at the New Alexander Street location. CW1 relayed defendant killed Clark by suffocating her with a plastic bag and informed investigators that defendant, over the course of multiple conversations, admitted to leaving New Alexander Street with the body and returning home hours later. These details had not been made public at this time. That goes back to me telling you guys they don't always release everything. They keep some things to themselves for the investigation. CW1 additionally told investigators that defendant was paranoid that she would be found with Clark due to the PFA and she could be incarcerated. The defendant was paranoid that she would be found with Clark due to the PFA and she could be incarcerated. So she's scared she was going to go to jail, so she killed her niece and took the life of someone that loved her and discarded her as trash because she was afraid to go to jail. CW1 related that prior to the murder, defendant kept Clark restrained in a closet inside the first floor apartment. Defendant would not allow Clark to be fed for a day or two before the murder. She starved her out. Defendant forced Clark to urinate in a plastic garbage can and was not allowed to shower. Defendant struck Clark with a plastic clothes hanger after making noise, leading to her being restrained and having her mouth taped. These actions were taken to hide Clark's presence from Hernandez, who was found to have been out of the house at work during much of these incidences. I don't understand, and this is where I need to talk to Candice. I don't understand why maybe there's no answer because people are sick. I don't understand why she was abusing LaLa. Maybe to have control, coercive control, domestic violence. Again, guys, she was holding LaLa hostage, kidnapped her, abused her corpse because she was afraid she'd go to jail. She knew LaLa loved her. Why would she do this to her? CW1 was asked about the presence of the witness's DNA on the knife that was found under Clark's body. CW1 told investigators the knife was from CW1's house and defendant took the knife. CW1 was angry upon finding out that the defendant left it at the scene with the body after being told by the defendant the items were left behind. CW1 indicated remorse as to not coming forward sooner and fear of going to jail due to CW1's knowledge of what had happened. So CW1 knew, but was afraid to also go to jail because of the knowledge of what happened and indicated remorse. In cooperating with police, CW1 consented to a search of his or her electronic device. The corroborated video surveillance obtained by Detective Sinovich on February 15th, 2026, CW1's Lyft account was utilized to order a rideshare at 2:42 a.m. CW1's Lyft account is registered under his or her T-Mobile phone number. The ride originated 1 block from the suspect's last known location at 198 North Pennsylvania Ave at the Turkey Hill. The rideshare destination was at 114 New Alexander Street with a drop-off time of 2:48 a.m. In February 26th and 26th interview, CW01 was confronted with the Lyft rideshare information obtained from her phone after Clark's body was disposed of on February 15th, 2026. CW01 said the defendant took his or her phone and was in possession of it during the disposal of Clark's body. Internet searches were also discovered on CW01's phone that showed the phone was utilized to research what household items can kill children. CW01 also attributed the searches to the defendant using his or her device. Included in the forensic data extraction of CW1's Samsung Galaxy A16 were videos that were recorded by the defendant using CW1's phone where CW1 was absent. There is an approximately 17-minute-long video that CW1 is taping, and the defendant, Bobby Joe, is narrating where Clark is lambasted by the defendant regarding her behavior and attitude while Clark was staying at 114 New Alexander Street. Although the defendant is using American Sign Language in the video, Bobby Joe was using sign language. Investigators used interpreters to decipher the defendant's tirade against Clark, which outlined why Clark was kept in the closet in a small room off the kitchen, aka the woman cave, including while the video was recording as follows. She was signing that Clark does not respect the defendant, that she does not clean up after herself, that LaLa constantly interrupts what others are doing, that the family was better off before she joined them, meaning her adoptive family, that the defendant liked her life more when Clark was not there. Now she's signing this to LaLa, because remember, LaLa's hard of hearing. She told LaLa in sign language that she's being selfish and asking for more and more and not appreciating what the defendant is doing to help her. That LaLa does not think about her aunt and ignores what she is asked to do. Bobby Joe outlines how she is disgusted by LaLa, who is leaving garbage all over the, quote, woman cave. The curtain, also recovered during the search of 114 New Alexander Street, separating the woman cave from the rest of the house, is highlighted, and the defendant is critical of Clark for opening the curtain and looking out into the house. The video, which is being made to the place guidelines on LaLa, informs her she is no longer allowed to leave the woman cave for any reason. At one point, the defendant signs, "You're bothering us waving through the curtain. I know you're in there. You don't need to keep reminding me that you're in there." The defendant places a plastic yogurt container of her crotch and says Clark will now urinate inside the container. Then she holds a garbage bag up to her buttocks and says Clark will defecate in the bag. Toilet paper is left in the room for her to use. Plastic yogurt container to urinate in and a garbage bag to defecate in. Being told she doesn't want to be around her. Being told to not make contact. Being told she's selfish. This is what she was going through in the last days of her life. While talking about the new bathroom guidelines, the defendant signs, "Fuck you anyways. You can piss in this. You don't need to come out here. You can shit in this. You're fucking annoying me when you come out here. You have this. You're pissing me off when you keep coming in. Fuck you. My legs hurt. What are you doing? You don't need to tell us that. You keep knocking on the door. You have to think of your aunt and the children." She's signing this to LaLa. On February 2026, social media posts indicate there is an investigation of a body at 55 Thayer Street. At about 3:50 p.m., which is a short time after the posts, the same extended stay hotel at 1067 Route 315 Plains, defendant is captured on camera arriving in a U-Haul. Defendant, Bobby Joe, packs her belongings that were being stored in the extended stay hotel after she left the hotel on February 8th. Detectives learned the U-Haul utilized by the defendant was destined for a location in Maryland. Defendant's publicly available Facebook activity was reviewed throughout the missing persons investigation. In all posts, she denied any knowledge of Clark's location. Importantly, those public posts also were littered with pictures of items that investigators discovered during their investigation of Clark's homicide. Defendant is pictured in the same white jacket being worn by the suspect entering the rideshare after LaLa's body was dumped. Bobby Joe is pictured with the white kitchen garbage bag with red drawstrings similar to what is found with LaLa's body. Defendant is shown inches away. Pair of purple-handled scissors that appear to be the same pair found on Clark's body. One of the defendant's children is shown holding a 2-liter Sprite bottle at 114 New Alexander, which, although very common, are in the location where such bottles are said to be used to freeze in place on Clark's body. My God. Oh my God. One of the defendant's children is shown holding a 2-liter Sprite bottle in photo at 114 in New Alexander, which although very common, are in the location where such bottles are said to be used to freeze and place on LaLa's body. Defendant is shown in one photo with a leopard sheet, like the one wrapped around suspected clothing, found in a dumpster along 114 New Alexander Street. The clothing in the leopard sheet is consistent with clothing worn by the suspect when she dumped LaLa's body behind 55 Thayer Street before changing clothes near North Washington and East Jackson Street. A large black garbage bag is shown in the kitchen of 114 Alexander Street, consistent with the bag found inside the tote at the laundromat, which, once again, although common, shows its availability at the time of the murder. A black curtain is observed, like the one CW1 described that defendant used to separate the room where LaLa was hidden from the kitchen, which was later recovered during the search of 114 New Alexander Street. Pursuant to a search warrant following the discovery of LaLa's body, investigators were reviewing camera footage from the extended stay hotel at 1067 Route 315 in Plains, where defendant was staying in late January and early February of 2026. During a review of that surveillance video on January 17th, the day Clark was first reported missing, defendant, Bobby Joe, a child, and a male, later identified as Moses Johnson, a paramour of defendant, exit the hotel and leave in an unknown vehicle believed to be a rideshare. At 1:16 p.m. on January 17th, Johnson returned, again, in a suspected rideshare with an unknown female who has the same physical attributes as Clark, but is covered up seemingly to conceal her identity. The three hastily returned to the defendant's room number 113 in the hotel. Following Clark's death, witnesses admitted it was Clark arriving to stay with the defendant. CW1 confirmed all aspects of defendant's steps to conceal Clark from her adoptive family and investigators, including cutting Clark's hair very short to alter her appearance, forbidding her from using any type of electronic device or social media, keeping her contained to the hotel room, and stripping LaLa of her beloved necklace and hearing aids. CW1 reported that he or she left the extended stay hotel with Clark and EM on February 8th, 2026, first by taxi to the Spots Be Gone laundromat in Wilkes Barre before returning to 114 New Alexander Street. Detectives confirmed a record of Lyft rideshare ordered by CW1, which first transports the defendant to the laundromat. Then, CW1 called a taxi to transport CW1, LaLa, and EM to the township laundromat to meet the defendant. Both departures are captured on hotel surveillance video. Detectives also locate the defendant on video in the shopping center of the Spots Be Gone laundromat. CW1 said he or she was with LaLa when they used a Lyft rideshare to travel from the laundromat to the 114 New Alexander Street residence. Clark's identity cannot be visually confirmed on video because, again, she is wearing items designed to conceal her face. While at the Wilkes Barre Township Shopping Center, where the laundromat is, investigators confirmed the defendant bought items like bubble baths and beauty products consistent with a spa day. CW1 described the defendant having a spa day for the females, including LaLa, who were staying at 114 New Alexander Street, and the defendant uses CW1's phone to record video from some of the spa day. The defendant was arrested February 26, 2026, by authorities in Maryland on Wilkes Barre's custody interference charges relating to harboring and concealing LaLa from her adoptive parents. The information about Clark's hearing aids, the necklace with the picture of Clark's deceased father possibly being in the VR headset case, were provided to authorities in Maryland. Maryland authorities obtained a warrant to search the defendant's hotel room. The hearing aids and Clark's necklace with the picture of her deceased father were located. However, they were not in the VR headset box. They were double wrapped and concealed inside a grocery store-style plastic bag. Authorities also located a cellular phone in defendant's possession. Defendant provided the hotel in Maryland the phone number of 570-846-9317 when she checked in, later confirmed to belong to the phone. That number was confirmed by Darlene Etzel, her mother. Defendant also changed the name she was registered at the hotel under because, quote, she didn't want to be found, unquote, according to Maryland authorities. Following her arrest in Maryland, the defendant was interviewed by detectives Andres and Nolan on February 26, 2026. She admitted to concealing LaLa from her adoptive family and investigators and having LaLa with her from January 17th until around February 14th, the same day Clark's body was disposed of behind 55 Thayer Street. I'm going to repeat that. Following her arrest in Maryland, the defendant, Bobby Jo Etzel, was interviewed by Detective Andres and Nolan. On February 26, 2026, she admitted to concealing LaLa from her adoptive family and investigators and having LaLa with her from January 17th until February 14th, the same day LaLa's body was disposed of behind 50th Street. She denied having anything to do with Clark's murder and disposal of the body. Bobby Jo said Clark and CW01 got into an argument, and then CW01 arranged a ride for Clark to leave 114 New Alexander Street. The defendant said she never inquired with CW01 as to where CW01 was going with LaLa. The defendant claimed she made no inquiries about her juvenile biological niece, who was being concealed from her family and legal guardians, and whom the defendant believed, if found, would result in her incarceration. She also said she never inquired to where LaLa went in the following days. Bobby Jo also made no mention of LaLa possibly being deceased inside 114 New Alexander Street for multiple days before the body was dumped, which was inconsistent with other witness statements. She was dead inside the home for multiple days, and they were putting frozen Sprite bottles on her body. Darlene Etzel, Bobby Jo's mother, was interviewed again by detectives Comning and Fisher on February 26, 2026, the same day her daughter was arrested. Darlene and LaLa came to see her at the nursing home. Darlene said LaLa came to see her at the nursing home on January 17th, the day she went missing, after she ran away from her 58 Thayer Street home. That's what Darlene, Bobby Jo's mother, said. If she believed LaLa left 58 Thayer Street and traveled directly to D. Etzel's bedside, LaLa alleged Woods was abusing her following the PFFA hearing and had taken away all of her devices, including her ability to video chat with the deaf community. So let me paraphrase this and break it down. Bobby Jo's mother, Darlene, in a nursing home, said LaLa came to see her at the nursing home on the day she went missing, January 17th, 2026, that she ran away from her 58 Thayer Street home, and it was believed she left because she was allegedly saying that her adoptive mother, Ammerah, was abusing her following the PFA hearing and taken away all of her devices, including her ability to video chat with the deaf community. That is what Bobby Jo, the defendant's mother, said. Darlene, claiming to be in fear for LaLa's safety, said she called the defendant, Bobby Jo, on January 17th, 2026. Darlene told LaLa to go to the nearby Aldi's to wait for Johnson to come pick her up in a rideshare to avoid someone seeing her. Darlene said the defendant did not tell her until after LaLa's body was found that she hid LaLa the entire time she was missing. The defendant told her mother one morning she woke up and LaLa was no longer at 114 New Alexander Street, which led to her driving around looking for LaLa, which the defendant did not say in her interview with the police. Darlene Etzel also had messages in her Facebook account she said were from both the defendant, Bobby Jo, and coming from a Facebook profile name, Emma Maple. One of those messages suggested Hernandez did not know or see LaLa. Julio has work all day and comes home tired and goes to sleep, and I don't even think Julio knows LaLa, and Mom always with us. She never had LaLa, it says. In the same message thread, Darlene said the defendant is using, quote, Emma Maple, unquote, Facebook profile messenger to communicate with her. The messages specifically reference, quote, my brother's urn, unquote, which would indicate the defendant is the one using Emma Maple Messenger to speak to Darlene, which is consistent with defendant using others' devices and accounts. She denies having anything to do with Clark's death. The account Emma Maple was created after LaLa's body was dumped. Darlene also told the defendant to watch out for the police on February 21st, 2026, hours after news of the body being found became public. There was no public indication of any kind that it was LaLa at this time. As part of the investigation, was interviewed regarding Clark being at the extended stay hotel and then moving with the defendant and her children to 114 New Alexander Street. Said Darlene called the defendant to inform her that LaLa was at the nursing home claiming abuse at the hands of her adoptive mother, Ammerah Woods. According to the defendant, feared that she would go to jail for 2 years for violating the PFA if LaLa was found with her and risk losing custody of her children as a result. Here's a fucking tip for you, you disgusting bitch. How about you don't take your niece under hostage and put a bag over her head, talk down to her through sign language, abuse her mentally, verbally, and emotionally, and physically? How about you don't dump her body in the fucking snow? How about you just follow the law and not violate your PFA, and you would not have to fucking worry about your kids being taken away and being put in jail for 2 years? How about you don't kidnap your niece who loved you? How about you don't murder someone who trusted you as an adult? How about you didn't put her in harm in the first place and you wouldn't have had a fucking PFA? How about you would have just left her alone and let her have the safety and love that she had with Ammerah and Antoine? You deserve to have your kids taken away, and I feel bad for your kids. Best thing they can have in their life is having you removed from their lives. Because if you could do this, and I'm talking to you as if you can hear me, if you can do this to your niece, you could do it to your kids. Claimed CW1 and Hernandez must have killed Clark because she smelled bleach when they were in the kitchen, but could offer no further details as to how or why CW1 or Hernandez supposedly killed Clark. She feared she would go to jail for 2 years for violating the PFA and risk losing her kids, so she killed her niece. Said Clark was dead about 3 to 4 days before the body was no longer in the house, and she was beginning to give off a foul odor. Specifically saw Clark's fingers and covered her foot protruding from the gray storage tote. Bags of clothing were used to cover the body in the tote. EM could not offer an explanation as to why he or she did not call or tell the EM could not offer an explanation as to why he or she did not tell the defendant about Clark's being dead in the tote while they were still at 114 New Alexander Street. EM said the defendant was not told about EM seeing Clark's body until they arrived in Maryland. The defendant hugged EM after being told about the body and told that she'll figure things out. Again, the defendant, Bobby Joe, made no mention of EM's disclosure during her interview with the detectives Andres and Nolan. Never asked or was told what happened to Clark's body after it was removed from 114 New Alexander Street until news and social media reports of it being found behind 55 Thayer Street. Claimed not to know what happened to Clark's hearing aids and necklace and seemed surprised investigators recovered them in the defendant's Maryland hotel room. She seemed surprised. EM's demeanor changed when informed the defendant was captured on camera dumping the body. Detective Andres conducted a review of the data in the defendant's phone after obtaining a search warrant. It contained a video with multiple items of evidence collected in the case. The video file has a date and timestamp of February 9th, 2026 at 12:48 p.m. The video pans around the kitchen of 114 New Alexander Street in a circular motion, revealing a gray tote similar in size and shape to the one used to transport Clark's body. The tote is near the threshold of a doorway that connects to a smaller room, aka the woman cave, with the closet Clark was forced to stay inside. The video then shows the shoes of the videographer wearing the brand and style the suspect is wearing entering the Lyft rideshare after dumping the body. The sneakers are black in color, Puma brand with a gold logo. Observed on the floor in front of the sneakers is a black and white color braided rope, visually consistent with the rope recovered from Clark's wrist. The video ends with a view of the small room off the kitchen. Hanging on the door of the closet is a white kitchen-style garbage bag with a red tie consistent with the type of bag that was used to suffocate LaLa as described by CW1. It is also visually consistent with a piece of white plastic bag with red tie collected from the dump site near the victim's body. Multiple images were uncovered depicting the defendant wearing a white winter jacket with a black belt consistent with the one the suspect is wearing while getting into the rideshare after dumping the victim's body. Photographs also show the defendant wearing the black Puma sneakers observed in the above video, and the video of her getting in the rideshare after dumping LaLa's body. During a review of the data extraction, numerous items of web web activity were of interest. On February 8th, the defendant placed a Walmart order. Included in the order are a pack of white garbage bags with red ties and 2-liter bottle of Sprite. On February 10th, she searched for a VR headset like CW1 identified as containing the victim's necklace and hearing aid, with the defendant packed them into the U-Haul. On February 11th, the defendant searches DMV new IDPA and sanity meaning at 2 different times. A search for ID also was on CW1's phone during another incriminating searches, while investigators believe the defendant had control of CW1's phone. The defendant was found to not have an ID, but CW1 does. The defendant also visits an article, How Much Will Cremation Cost in 2026? This is premeditated. Maybe it wasn't premeditated, it happened in the moment, but no, it was premeditated because she had searched how to kill a child. And then how much would a cremation cost? She had the intent the whole time. This article was of interest due to the defendant regularly transporting and being in possession of an urn containing her deceased brother's, the victim's father's, cremated remains. On February 11th, the defendant, Bobby Joe, also searched the word coercion. Can children mental emotional abuse adults? So he was researching on the internet coercive control and asking if children can mentally emotionally abuse adults, and also looked up mental emotional health shutdown. On February 14th, prior to the victim's body being transported in a cart and dumped, the defendant searches, can Facebook tell your location? And can Instagram see my location? The defendant also searched bulk beach wagon and utility wagon prior to the dump of LaLa's body. In response to a search warrant, investigators also obtained the call detail records for the defendant's phone number 570-846-9317. During a review of the records, an abnormality was observed on February 15th. The type of device that was connected to the defendant's phone number changed from the defendant's WingTech Revel 7 found in her possession at the time of her arrest in Maryland. On February 15th at 10:06 a.m., the IMEI number changed, and the device make and model changed to Apple iPhone 16. Transferring the SIM card from a WingTech Revel 7 to an Apple iPhone 16 results in 2 different IMEI numbers appearing in the call detail records. This was the first activity observed on the CDR's timing advance records after LaLa's body was dumped. The next activity at approximately 11:41 a.m. Eastern on February 15th reverts to the original IMEI number and the original make and model device. Given that the SI remained constant during the IMEI change, the most plausible explanation is the transfer of the SIM card between the devices. This process would involve physically removing the SIM card from the WingTech Revel 7 and inserting it into the Apple iPhone 16. Subsequently, the Apple iPhone 16 would be powered on to establish a connection with the cellular network. For the records to indicate that the IMEI reverted to the original device, the WingTech Revel 7, the SIM card, would need to be manually removed from the iPhone 16 and reinserted into the WingTech Revel 7, which would then be powered on to reconnect the cellular network. During the investigation, only one phone was identified as an Apple iPhone 16. This phone was located inside the hotel room where the defendant was arrested in Maryland on February 26, 2026. This device was collected into a response and a search warrant executed in the hotel room immediately after the defendant's arrest and has remained in police custody. A search warrant was obtained and executed on that Apple iPhone 16, but it did not have the IMEI used to conduct the search on 10:06 a.m. February 2026. However, the forensic download on that device revealed the phone belonged to. Some usage of the phone indicates the defendant also likely utilized the phone, including searches related to tax returns, messages about how and when the U-Haul will be returned, which is consistent with the investigation showing the defendant uses other devices. The phone also showed messaging Johnson to say CW1 lied about the defendant killing Clark, and a note that read, "Is CW1 said cop look at camera in her apartment." I know that doesn't make sense, but this is what was typed because this is what was in a text. Is CW1 said cop look camera in her apartment. As part of this investigation, detectives monitored the Facebook account of Bobby Joe Etzel. Prior to LaLa's body being found, The Facebook account of the defendant made numerous public posts referencing Clark and the missing person investigation. On January 21st, 2026, Bobby Joe's account made a lengthy post referencing the PFA being used to separate her from LaLa. The post reads how she hopes Clark is safe and happy and not on the worst news that she is prepared for and definitely won't be surprised. The post continued to say that everyone thinks I have her, but I don't this time. Clark was staying with the defendant inside the hotel room the day this post was made by the defendant's own admission. On January 3rd, 2026, the Facebook account of Bobby Joe Edsel posted that she missed Nayabu again, while the defendant admits Clark was actually with her. The post then expressed her anger towards the people trying to find LaLa, saying it is fake shit and that they should have helped her before. Bobby Joe Edsel's account post adds how she will start sharing everything that LaLa has said to her. An additional post on January 23rd discussed how foster adoptive parents are evil, monsters, horrible torture people behind closed doors. These posts contradict the multiple opportunities the defendant was given to discuss these allegations with the police. Again, LaLa was with her at this time. On February 4th and 13th, Bobby Joe Edsel's account posted for Clark's to return home, reach out and let her know she is safe, and referenced her LaLa's missing status. The defendant admits being with LaLa on February 4th and February 6th, and the investigation revealed LaLa already was dead February 2026. On February 14th, 2026, Bobby Joe Edsel's account posted images from LaLa's legacy in honor of Lanaya Clark's Facebook page, which at the time was still dedicated to the safe return of Clark, describing her as a child who was loved and missed. The investigation has revealed Clark is already deceased when Bobby Joe Edsel account makes this post. On February 18th, 2026, Bobby Joe Edsel's account posted 2 videos with the captions, "Fuck you, FAWK, and fuck what you think. Quit judging me," using middle finger emojis. "And I fucking hate the world. System failed her. People's failed her. Fuck you all." This post was made before Clark's body was found, but Clark is dead at this time. So she's out there pointing fingers at everybody else, blaming the adoptive family, telling everybody to go F themselves, using middle finger emojis, saying the system failed her, saying the people failed her. You know what? No, she failed her. Bobby Joe Edsel failed LaLa. The cops were out looking for her. The children and youth tried getting involved. Her family looked for her. The community tried looking for her. Bobby Joe failed her. Darlene failed her. And everybody else that knew failed her. But thank you to the ones who came forward. The investigation has revealed that a series of events that began following the PFA hearing on January 13th, 2026, led to Clark's kidnapping, homicide, and abuse of her corpse. Anytime Clark could have been captured on video in the 25 days she was with the defendant, Bobby Joe, after being reported missing, the defendant took steps to ensure people other than herself could potentially be seen with Clark, attempting to insulate herself from criminal liability. Then, the defendant's prevailing fear of incarceration, losing custody of her own children, and a video-documented disdain of Clark were her motives for Clark's homicide. Her flight to Maryland on the day LaLa's body was discovered prior to it being identified as Clark's remains shows a conscience of guilt. The defendant's own interview and social media posts are littered with fabrications and attempts to mislead both investigators and the general public, as well as falsely implicating others. Based on the foregoing, affiants respectfully submit that within affidavit establishes probable cause for the charges and request an arrest warrant be issued therefore. And that is the 27-page affidavit. Bobby Joe is in custody, being charged for murder. Nothing else has been released at this time. Her family is grieving. They will grieve forever. The people showed up for LaLa at her vigil, at the town halls, at her funeral, and they continue to show up. Guys, I am parched. I'm emotional. I'm angry. I'm sad, but I'm angry. I want to say, when I first saw LaLa, I could tell. I told Candice immediately. I said, "Oh, she's sassy. Oh, yeah, she is." She looked like she was so funny and would tell you what the hell she thought. I am sorry to LaLa and her family that she was taken, that she was abused, that she was talked down to, locked in a closet. I'm sorry her life was taken at the hands of somebody she trusted and loved. And it's just a reminder that PFAs cannot protect you from death. And they need to be taken more seriously. And remember that domestic violence is within the close circle of family, not just a partner. She took LaLa out of jealousy, out of spite, out of anger, out of resentment, out of control, and thought she could hide it and get away with it. She was afraid of going to jail for 2 years and losing her kids, and now she's going to go to jail for life or face the death penalty if there's a trial. She may plead guilty, and I know Candice said that they hope she does so they don't have to sit through court and see images. But if it does go to trial, they'll be there every single day, every single time. Please send Ammerah, Antoine, and Candice and their extended family love and support and prayers. I send my love, my respects, and I'm just very sorry for what happened. Let this be a lesson. Let this be, I don't even know. I usually I have a closing statement, but I don't know how to close with this because it's just awful. I don't have words to close, guys. So LaLa's family are in my thoughts. Her friends are their family. LaLa's in my thoughts, and I'm just very sorry. Please reach out to the Facebook page that Candice created in memory of LaLa. If you have questions, concerns, they'd be more than happy to answer your questions. They tried to debunk rumors for a long time, but they had to watch what they said as well, so they didn't further complicate the investigation. The Facebook page is LaLa's Legacy in honor of Lanaya Clark. I follow it, but I share stuff all the time. But if you need clarity, if you have questions, if you want to send your condolences, reach out to that Facebook page. Don't be an asshole. Don't be an asshole. A child's life was taken. No matter who you know, who you're related to, who you're friends with, a child's life was taken. And LaLa is what matters here. She is loved and she is missed. This was an emotional episode, and I hope I gave this criminal the disrespect she deserves. This is True Crime with Tiff Klein signing off, and I will talk to you next time.